Okay. Hello and welcome to OnSurviving. My name is Megan and I'm a survivor.
And my name is Nobly, and I am a survivor.
Together, we're bringing OnSurviving to the world because it matters.
It matters to me because alongside the potent fears of our frail hearts is so much hurt, loss, and trust issues that I often had to navigate through all alone with very little resources and zero trust. I am passionate about doing this project because I get to tell my story and be that trusting person to be there and help navigate through resources that I didn't have and hopefully make a difference in people's process of surviving.
And it matters to me because I want others to recognize the deep strength and rich humanity involved in every step in the process of surviving the tragedies that life brings many of us. I suffered silently and alone for too long. And I want to help others to find hope more quickly and readily and feel and be less alone in the process of surviving.
On surviving, you matter, we matter, and on surviving matters. I'm sorry.
Oh, we are all natural. I think that actually is a wonderful introduction to the evening we may be having together.
Yes.
We had some more technical difficulties this evening, and who knows, they may actually continue to show up in this episode. If so, we may pivot as we go. I also am showing up just, tired and off today. So that I'll just claim that right from the get go. That said, we have important stuff to talk about. We want to talk about managing our lives when we're in therapy, given all that gets dredged up and the various forms of mental health talk therapy we might be going through. And how that then affects our relationships, our work, our personal relationships, our work relationships, just how we feel in general going through our days when we're in the midst of some pretty intense inner work. Anything else you want to say about that or about you and how you're showing up tonight, Nobly?
I just am too tired. I feel pretty good. I have a lot of big changes coming up, so I'm just kind of all over scatterbrain because it's like I got a lot going on, but just mostly tired.
Yeah.
I feel okay though.
Nice.
Thank you
Nice.
for
I
asking.
I happen to be in the know about those changes, folks who are listening, and at least some of them that are really really great changes. And it just goes to show that change, whether it is good, bad, somewhere in the middle, takes a toll and can be really exhausting. So I do hope you take good care of yourself.
And on the other end of that, let me just say really quick that that because of the self work that I've been doing in my therapy, we'll get there on what kind and everything, but it's been a lot of like self esteem work and learning how to love on myself. And if I wouldn't have started that process of learning how to really like myself and take care of my emotional self through all of this, I wouldn't have done these changes. These are
Mm.
positive changes. And like anyway, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but for me it kind of ties into what's going on right now. So
Nice.
yeah, we'll dive into that.
Nice, nice. Maybe actually at the other end of like talking about the hard stuff, you can share some of that great stuff that you've
Yeah,
been able to do as a
definitely.
result. Cool, cool. Well, hey, everybody, as always, we do our best to speak frankly about our experiences, and understand that this can trigger some trauma responses in others. If that is the case for you at any point in time, remember you are in charge, and really encourage you to take care of yourself however you. And if you don't have a good support system, readily available to you, please don't hesitate to pick up the phone and text or call 988, the National Suicide and Crisis Line. By the way, you don't have to feel suicidal to call a crisis, there for all sorts of crisis support. Um, and then there's a variety of others that you can you do. Given technical difficulties that are actually showing up right now, I am not going to try to share my screen. So let's get me to stop talking and we'll start actually listening to you nobly. Just have you talk a little bit about what you've been going through recently, since that really is what prompted this topic. And let's just start with what kind of therapy or kinds of therapy are you going through? When did you start? What prompted you to do it? Now, or when you started.
Right. So, over the years, I've talked a little bit about before, I've done like state issued therapy where it's like 6 sessions max, and it wasn't very successful. But I wanted to, now that I have some recovery time behind me, and I felt like this was a good time for me to start diving into some of the deep stuff. We had a new therapy place open up that became highly recommended. It's actually who I recommend my clients to. And a friend of mine said that I should ask for specifically for EMDR and IFS, which is internal family systems therapy. I've never heard of it. I didn't know anything about it, but I was willing to try it. And so I started about 4 or 5 months ago, tops. And the friend that told me about it also highly recommended a therapist that she thought would vibe with me very well. She's also in recovery and just lots of similarities. And so I held off for her. A different one came up, but I turned it down so I could specifically have her. And I was kind of prepared to be guarded and stuff just because that's what it's looked like. And instantly, like, I took to her so well. And the reason why I started doing this is because I have such deep rooted traumas that I've had my entire life, and they show up in my life and in my body in different ways. And I have self-medicated with street drugs and with whatever else because I couldn't go there. But I felt like now was the time to do something and see what I could do in here. And so with the internal family systems, it's she calls it parts work, where each one of your traumas has a age, however old you were when that trauma happened. And so you start the session out by like scanning your body and kind of introducing your current self to these parts and seeing if anything shows up. And it's not like you're in a trance, but you're really trying to see what happens. So I didn't think that my body would take to this, because I've never been able to picture yourself on a beach. I could never do that. So I thought it wasn't going to work. Well, it did. And within the third session, some deep, deep traumas started coming up that I had suppressed. Like I hadn't thought about them.
Yeah. Let me interrupt for just a second. I'm curious. You said you didn't think it would work. By the third session, you really started getting deep. Was it already working in your first session, or were those first couple of sessions kind of warming into it and then you were able to?
I think it was warming into it. I mean, when she said to create a gathering place for my parts to go to if the work becomes too much in the first couple of sessions, I was able to create that gathering place and stuff. But when I would start kind of going deep, if something started coming up, my other parts that didn't trust it would stop, and I would get too emotional and I wouldn't be able to move forward. And so it was about the third session that she was able to get like the scared part and the upset part and the non-trusting part to kind of step back and go into that gathering spot so that um, I could go there with it.
Okay.
And then she wants you to stay in there. So it's like it's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Okay. So that sounds pretty. So when you go deep, I was just about to ask you, like, what is that? Right. We don't need to have you tell us the details of what you talk about. That's yours. Of course, you're welcome to share if you like. But I think it could be useful to just think about, like, what is that look like what does that intensity look like in a session, right? It's not like you and I just sitting here talking about. Sometimes you and I will talk about really tough stuff, but kind of like this, like there's not a lot of like heavy emotion in the body, showing up like that. So I'm just curious what that kind of looks and feels like for you in a session.
Well, I didn't really know to this degree how your physical body reacts, but I'll share this recent memory. Age 10 came up, and age 10 was one of the most traumatic years as a kid, as far as abuse goes, at the hands of my mom's boyfriend. And during that time, I started self harming. And I had started the self harming off by sharpening my pencil at school very, very hard, and then pressing the eraser against my desk and stabbing myself with the sharp end into my stomach, so that I could feel something. And I would have big holes, in my stomach, you know, and then it started with, burning and cutting after that. But this particular memory, she brought me back to some of the abuse, and it was a memory where he was abusing my mom, and I couldn't get in the room, and it was really bad. And so I was stabbing, in the memory, and I went like and I grabbed my stomach, like my body responded to the stabbing, like I present day like felt that, and I went like that and jerked, and the therapist was like, "What's happening right now?" And I said, "Well, um, I'm stabbing."
Right.
And then a lot of the times that was like the biggest like physical jerk, and a lot of the times
Like a Sorry, that was like a real trauma memory, right? So it's like when I say that, I mean it's alive like it was then, right? It's not gone through, been processed like a lot of our other memories. It's just it's real as if you're experiencing it again.
yeah, as a lot of them have been. And then a lot of times it shows up in my gut, like I'm gonna throw up.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
I have thrown up, like right after a memory like that. I physically, if nothing came out, then dry heaved. Like it was, my body was wanting to throw up. And then you could tell if I'm scared, I'm hunched. I'll have anxiety and I won't be able to hold still. So it really, it shows up a lot physically. Those really, like you said, non-processed, raw, like we're there. Like I actually was 10 years old in that session. Like I was there. And the reason why it's called eye movement, I can never say that, desensitization, is because after that particular session, it took her 7 minutes to get me out of it. And what she'll do is she'll say blink, and then she'll say count to one, two, three, count by ones, and then ABC, and then she'll say stop, blink, and that's a process to like get me out. And so that was the longest period of time. It took 6 to 7 minutes to get me out of 10 and back to 50. So
Wow. Okay. I am curious if one clarifying question first. Are you going to weekly sessions? How often are you?
Every Tuesday at 3.
Okay. Which is toward the end of your workday, right? You work typically work 8 to 5 or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And I remember from your piece that you wrote on this, you said you go back to work afterward. Yeah. Can you, since you have been going through this intensive combination therapy, have has every session, like since that third one, been intense like that? That kind of intense.
No, there was one that was very promising. I mean, it was a very good one, just one out of all of them. And that was because my age 16 part was able to go to the beach because she wanted me to create a spot for 8, 9, and 10 parts that were showing up. And 16 showed up, and 16 was able to bond with these parts and show them stuff because she was always full of anxiety. And anyway, that happened. And then 16 left, and there was no adults there. So she asked if I could invite a trusting adult that I trusted. And even though when my brother was killed, he was 6, I invited my brother into this memory. I'll try not to cry, but he showed up as an adult, and I can like see him. And we were on the beach, and he was teaching my my younger parts how to fly a kite. And for the first time, I was a kid. I was running on the beach, and the kite and him and that, and I didn't want to get out of it. I kept trying to stay. I wanted to stay there. And then when I got done, I just knew, like, I know that our children are okay where they are in their other life, in their other world. But I was so little when my brother was taken. I just always, like, in my mind, he wasn't, I don't know. I just wanted to know him as a grown up. I longed to know him as a grown up. And even though I was there for 8 minutes, I still have the most at peace. I saw him, like what he would look like my dad. And he was like how I pictured him to be, like calm and funny and handsome and patient, and he loved me. I'm his little sister. And so all those parts who were being beat and neglected and all the things, and they didn't know how to be a child because they had to be a mom to these other kids, my other sisters. He died before they were born, so he didn't know them. Anyway, I got to be a girl with my big brother, and so that was the most beautiful thing I've in so long. I
What a
just
gift. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, in so many ways. Thank you for sharing that. That was
Yeah. But all the other ones have been, very, very hard.
and this you're still going through. This is ongoing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no time limit on it. That's the beauty of it. Because some weeks I show up and I'm not doing it. That I'm either not, I just, or my body says nope, try again. Not today. So then we'll do other kind of like exercises that's not going deep into the trauma like that.
Another really good reason to have all the sessions you need to be covered,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So is there more you want to talk about and share about what that's like going through that? I'm wanting to move when you're ready to talking about how this is showing up in the rest of your life. But is there anything more that I haven't asked about that you think is helpful for people to understand what it's
No, I think we'll just touch on what that's like going back to work and stuff a little later in the session, or did you want to touch on that now?
Oh, yeah, I want to ask you about that next, but I also didn't want to move on if there was more you wanted to share about that experience in the sessions.
I don't think so. I mean,
Okay.
other stuff might come up as we move along, but I think that those were the big ones I wanted to share mostly about right now.
Okay. Great. So, powerful emotional experience, both positive and negative. And well, it's negative. It's like hard, I guess I should say, right? Because even the hard is valuable eventually, right?
Right. So,
uh,
so in the article that you wrote, it also sounded like you had been through some similar stuff as well.
uh,
Did you want to touch on any of those experiences?
yeah, I mean, I think it's easier for me to share a little bit more about how they're. Well, let me just give you like a quickie like window into my experiences that I've never done IFS. That all is really intriguing to me, and I can see especially how powerful it would be when you're dealing with such intense childhood trauma like you have been through. And I have also gone through EMDR, both from the childhood sexual abuse, as well as from the accident that Jasmine died. My daughter died.
Yeah.
Um, though it sometimes I've done those. I have since done other kinds of just regular, talk therapy, somatic therapy, um, and even in those sessions, oftentimes, like the last session was really just honestly all on the phone and just completely talk therapy. And I wasn't, I was struggling with some pretty intense change, um, and I also had really wanted. Here's the thing. Okay, sorry. Let me back up. I started that therapy actually to deal with um, grief of losing Jasmine. I had gone through EMDR shortly after he died. Well, a few months after is when I started doing it. And then I came to a point, it was just all I could do. And I was so exhausted. And honestly, I couldn't fathom a way forward that was really healthy at that moment. Just it was just a mess. And, and so I think that I went through EMDR enough so that I could close my eyes at night, right? So that I wouldn't, because I would close my eyes and I would see the accident, see her body in the river. I would, I would hear my scream over and over and again. And so EMDR helped to take all of that and just move it somewhere else, right? Where so it wasn't like attacking me. Um, not just on I mean, throughout the day in my waking and my attempts at sleep. And so it helped to make life in those terms a little bit more manageable. But went for years without any kind of therapy to address the grief. And so I carried that in lots of different ways, including trying to treat it with alcohol and drugs and all sorts of other things to try to, I don't know, um, when I wasn't capable of doing the deep work that needed to be done. So anyway, so this last stint of just basic counseling, a grief counseling, um, came to a point. Even then, I was so like shaking in my body, like I got disorganized in my thoughts when trying to deal with other people in my life. My feet was extraordinary short. Yeah, I
Was
just I
this on
felt
the phone?
this was all on the phone. Yeah, my therapist. It was funny. It was a therapist I found through BetterHelp. Have you heard of that service?
A
Yeah,
little bit, not too much.
yeah. And I'm not. I don't know. I wasn't totally sold on it, but I loved the therapist I randomly ended up with. She was trying to give me all these like constructive things to deal with, but then she just kept coming to this place of holding space and just listening to me like dump all the stuff that had been, stored up inside of me over the years that I didn't even think it was going to be that intense of a conversation because I was like, I'm feeling pretty good. I've done all this other stuff to, but then holy moly, it just started rolling. And
That's
I
what happens. I could be having the best, like, I feel like I'm on the mountain, just woo. And then I'll get into a session thinking, oh, no, that for sure nothing's going to come up. And then boom,
yeah.
major trauma one will come. So
Yeah.
interesting to me how that works.
Mhm.
I'm actually quite blown away about the process. I have spent 50 years absolutely hating myself and abusing my body in every way, shape, and form. And to be shown at 50 years old how to physically and internally love on not only my present self, but all those little parts that went through such trauma.
Yeah.
That's a thing that you can do that, and how I feel about myself and how I'm still working on it. I still can be a little bit nicer to myself at times, but the way it shows up in how I view myself, therefore it to me, I'm blown away. And then how the things that she's showed me, the physical touch things that you can do. Can I just show a couple real quick?
Yeah.
So the biggest one that affects me the most is if I'm really vulnerable and really, really, really heightened in that emotional state. If you just close your eyes and go like this and just rub it as soft as you possibly can, it almost instantly creates this soothing, safe thing the feeling that I just didn't really have. And so that's my absolute favorite one. And doing this in the midst of that when I can't sometimes right in the minute. And then this isn't my other favorite one. This is for anxiety. It's just this simple. Yeah. And I mean, it works. And you do it to your fastness and to your hardness. But for me, it's like a real mild. I was in an AA meeting the other day, and somebody was like just going through it, and they were just all over the place, emotional. And I'm like, and the sponsor goes, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Get rid of my anxiety," and it really actually works.
That's right.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So that's, yeah, somebody else's trauma was triggering some trauma in you. And that was a tool that you learned to use to manage that so you could stay present, right? I imagine, were you able to actually stay more present with that, what that person was sharing when you were?
Was because I had a sense of like this isn't, it reminds me by touching myself that it's not my trauma. Like I'm
Mhm.
here, this is me, and we're okay.
Mhm. It's so interesting that you say that because when I was working with Lawrence, my coach, one of the things that he would say in these guided meditations that we would go through, which just has been something that have just come to say to myself when I'm feeling really, I don't know if I want to say triggered, but I'm just, um,
Elevated or
yeah, and it's just, you are here. And because so much of those responses, like where I would feel out of control or starting to like spin in my head, or like that, like you're right, your anxiety is building, is like it's related to all this stuff that happened in the past, right? So like I am here like now, not there. And so it's like, oh, can see myself, feel myself, I can breathe here and now. I have agency right here, even if I didn't back in that other, which brings me to, it's interesting to me to hear you talk about this. And we've kind of put off a little bit talking about the effects at work, but I know that you've had some struggles like with your own, just dealing with the effects of that. But it also kind of sounds like you may have built some more agency in how you deal with those situations. Is that true?
yeah, I do feel that way. It's just it's for some reason the sessions and then the going right back to work, I have a harder time practicing the things that I've learned. And I'm not entirely sure why. I think a lot of it is because I um, as of a while now, I haven't felt supported at work.
Mm.
So I already feel like I'm being judged, and there's biases against my mental health. And so I'm like trying really hard not to, I don't know. It's just so it surprises me that I can't put those things into effect. Like obviously I have to just enough to get back there, but when I do use those, they're effective, and I have those tools now to use when I can. So it is good that I have those now because I never knew anything about that before.
Yeah. That's real though, right? Like when you're we're learning. This is a process.
Yeah, oh yeah.
and and we'll get better at it going through, but that um I'd like to, what I have in my head right now is those memories of have you gotten therapy yet?
Yeah.
Boy, so and so should be in therapy. And, that's all well and good. But yeah, hell yeah, it is a process. And there's a lot of stuff that gets churned up and that spills out into our lives. So, do you feel comfortable sharing a little bit about what that looked like and where you're talking about the biases against your mental health stuff that you're experiencing in the midst of trying to do this, not trying to, doing this really hard inner work?
Yeah. So I'm a peer support mentor, and I work with people, that I have various traumas and problems themselves.
Mm.
So when I first applied for this job, I had never done any kind of work like this before, but I was very frank, and I did say, I'm bipolar 2. And I said that because I thought that I would, have that support with them knowing. I didn't go into any I just simply said that I'm bipolar 2. I think that might have been one of the questions that they had asked me, and I was honest about it. I don't remember how it all came about. And they're like, "Oh yeah, no, we support mental health, and we are all about self care. And if you ever are having a manic high or a low, you tell us right away, and we're just gonna walk you right." Anyway, and I'm like, "Oh, this is wonderful! Wow, cool." And then it didn't look like that. It did not look like that. It was like, you don't get to use PTO for mental health. And we all have mental health problems. I heard a lot in the office chatterbox, and it's like, that would that would take me places that I just wanted to just flat out clue somebody in.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, how you mean to tell me you can't work because you're having a mental health episode? And it just was like, it was really it was just another way that I was targeted. I was targeted for being Native American, and I was also targeted for being Christian. And then I was targeted for having mental health. So that it just was a whole lot of stuff, but I was never supported through my mental health. I would call in and say, I'm sorry, but I shit my pants, or I would say whatever I had to say to be able to stay home, because I couldn't go to work.
Okay.
Same with my son. My October is my son's birthday, who passed, by the way. I know you know, but my son's birthday and his death day, month of October. There's gonna be, however that shows up, I may or may not be able to work.
Right.
And I think that we can stub our toe and have a broken toe, and that's okay to call in. But if we are having a legitimate, like, trauma, PTSD, or death date of our children, or a bipolar manic episode that shows up out of nowhere, because that's how that works. I cannot say that and be like protected and supported, and that's not. I did not get that through this company at all, at all.
Yeah. See, this is this is so surprising to me, and I'm really frustrated hearing it, actually, just because I do remember when you started this job that it did feel like it was like going to be that environment where people would understand and would provide, provide you the space that you need, and work with you to get what you need handled. I want to ask you a couple of clarifying things. So your experience, um, what did you take it to mean when people said, uh, "Oh, well, we all have mental health problems"?
Well, first of all, it's generic, it's generalizing everybody's mental health. Yes, there are a lot of people in America and all over the world that have mental health, but everybody's mental health does not look the same.
That's right.
That this person's bipolar 2, they may always be a manic high. Me, I generally run a manic low. So when I run a manic high, which recently I did not know what to do with myself. You know what I mean? And it's like, that to me is insulting for the people that suffer this kind of mental health. Now, when you say the word mental health, to me, that's not like, yeah, I get frustrated every now and again, or yeah, I get upset every now and again. That's life. But mental health, to what I'm talking about, mental health, trauma, PTSD to the point, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, those that mental health is not. It's not to be generalized and downplayed. And
Right.
that's what I felt like that they were doing, just saying, we all have, no, we all don't. And,
Right.
and there is a lot, there are a lot, but I want people, and that's why when, to me, there's a lot of services that just, a lot of people that just kind of slip through the cracks because people want to generalize and downplay mental health.
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah. Well, and a lot of the way I feel about it when I've heard certain things, because I take that the same way. I was just curious if we were hearing that the same way.
yeah,
Um, and the way I feel about it is like, folks can talk a really good talk, like they know they're supposed to say these things, but when it comes down to it, when, someone is struggling and it's an inconvenience for other people,
yeah,
then it's dismissed as, oh, basically suck it up, buttercup, like we're all dealing with something and we got to get this done, and sometimes there are things that do just kind of got to get done, and you can find a way to make it through, and but it is not in all situations by far, and oftentimes can do damage to us when we do it. Like I can use my a simple another physical malady, where I suffer from chronic migraines, and if there are some migraines that I have that don't aren't such searing, excruciating pain that, like, I can look at the screen, my computer screen, it hurts. I mean, there's this horrible pain that is distracting. I'm definitely not 100% trying to do what I can doing, but I don't have to be like in bed with the covers over my head and, ice packs all around,
right,
like
yeah,
I can get through. Um, and virtually every time I do that, I have a worse migraine the next day that usually does completely put me down.
yeah,
So that's what and I really feel like the same thing happens when we are continually told, when we know, like, what, I need a minute here, I'm going to take a couple hours, I'm going to take a day, I need a couple of days to just breathe and get and collect myself. Here's how I'm going to handle and take care of these things that I know are not going to get done in this time, or I'm going to ask someone to, help with this thing, or, whatever. It will make it work. It's not the end of the world usually if you need to adjust. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to be much closer to 100% to be able to do that. But if I'm not allowed to do those things, and like tends and the environment is such that um you're going to be there's going to be some negative repercussions for you bringing it up, you're going to probably be more inclined to stuff it. um uh One option. And if you do, like, you're probably more inclined to do that more often, which can really make things worse. Like I carried and sat with that grief stuff for so long because it was never convenient. Well, one, it was never convenient. Two, I didn't have good insurance to get the, and there are other things. But all the times that I had to just like kind of buckle down and get through, um, I know that I was teetering on the edge and like basically had to stop doing everything for a while, work wise, And so, and that doesn't happen if I can just take a couple hours here or a couple days here when I need to, right? So I'm sorry for kind of going off about that, but it's just um yeah, I get so very very frustrated about that. So that being
well, let me just say one
aside,
thing.
yeah, go ahead.
Just that, and here's the thing, I have a work computer that I could easily work from home on case notes, but I was told, no, we're not doing that. And then I'm supposed to go out there to these clients' house that have extreme trauma and try to walk them through how to get through mental health. But you're wanting me to show up there batshit fucking crazy
Mm,
because you won't let me stay at home to get to a spot where I just it's
mhm.
and let me just say this: it's all a power trip on my direct supervisor's part.
Ah,
She could let me do those things.
I see.
But because I was new, she wanted to throw that weight around at me. And as a result, they're losing. And my last day at that company is the 30th. They're losing an exceptional employee.
Ye Exceptional, absolutely.
So
Yeah, yeah. So I also want to ask before I think it's about time for us to start, actually turning into like how that could be better. But I'm you brought up two other things though that you said bias against your mental health condition, but also against you as a Native American and as a Christian. Um, do you see any connection? I'm just curious. Are those completely separate issues to you, or is there any overlap here?
I think the mental health and the being a Native American could in their eyes could be like like tied together. I
Mm,
guess I don't really know. To me, it's three separate things.
okay. I just wanted to check in. I
Yeah.
didn't want to like scoot past because those are important.
No,
And
yeah, it was definitely three
okay.
separate ways of being treated
Yeah,
poorly.
yeah. Okay. And and then okay, so we've got a supervisor who's got a power trip that is really just making it difficult for you to manage your work life and going through therapy at the same time.
Yeah.
I also wanted to add because it's not always so um it's not always like something like that, like a power trip, right? So sometimes it's well-meaning people who also have other stuff going on in their lives. Like
Yeah.
the examples that I was giving in that when I was going through that last bout of just talk therapy and was so surprised at how much that was that working through that grief and like pulling that to the surface and what that was how that was affecting me that in two ways that I felt less equipped to be like the kind of rock in my relationship, my marriage that I felt like I needed to be because my husband was going through a really difficult time himself and we were in the midst of this massive change that like neither of us felt like the ground was stable under us. And in the past when things have been like that for him, I have been able to be that kind of that counter that, there's stable ground beneath my feet, right? Like I can and then vice versa. In other times where I have been I mean, some of my darkest, worst points in my life, and he just sitting there next to me holding my hand was like just the what I needed. And that in so many other things that has done um to, to help and be there for me. So I know that that's possible. But at that time, when I knew I wasn't equipped to deal with his stuff, he also wasn't equipped to deal with mine. So that like surfaced in, some pretty tough, well, some real tension between us. And I wouldn't. There was some pretty tough arguments and fights. I mean, even in that state, luckily, we're pretty good at like kind of doing this like tense thing. We have this when things get really bad, we basically go to our separate corners and text argue.
Yeah. I love that.
Sounds really silly, but you know what? It's like we both get like, it's almost like passing the baton to talk, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then so it gets like it all the whole argument gets slowed down, right? It's not that like you're head to head in the
Yeah.
room and like
Yeah.
arguing over top of each other. You're like, maybe there's a stream of like, texting like mad, a bunch of stuff coming out, but it like slows down and then we come back. So anyway, so we have some little tools to
I
get through
actually
that.
like that.
But that was extraordinarily difficult given where we both were. Also, I was trying to start a business at the time, and again, my business partner was um best of intentions. I love him dearly. But when I share, I had like gotten snippy with them at one point in time, and I just came back and I said, "Hey, look, I just need you to know I'm going through this thing." And and so that's where that was coming from. It's just like I'm on edge, I'm like raw nerves, and I just, you know, uh so I apologize, and I'm going to work to not have that happen more. And I just may not be able to do, XYZ, quite as quickly, or, as much of this thing. And I asked for a little bit of patience and some grace because I couldn't guarantee like how great I was gonna be. And
Yeah.
what came back was really like paternalistic and like, talking down to me. And then everything was like through that lens and like, treating me like a child. And I was like, oh my God, like,
No, it's not.
come on, man. Like, you should be the one who is best equipped, to and understand this best, to be able to give me some grace, to hear that I'm actually trying to be responsible to our relationship, our business relationship, as well as our friendship. But it was a problem. So I guess I share those things too because there's this whole range of responses I think that we might be experiencing in our lives from other people. So the question is, how can we make it work better across all of those circumstances, right? What can we do for ourselves, and what can others in our lives do? To, yeah. So let's go back to your work situation then. Just starting there, are there things um that have been helpful for you? Are there, like, we mentioned some of those little tools that are, maybe not quite, so, maybe not quite able to use them yet, so things you could have done, things they could do. um
I think for me, in order to get me to the spot where I could just get a session and then go back, I really have to do the positive self-talk to myself. Like, it's okay. You have 1 hour. You have 1 hour at the most, and then you could do what you have to do. You know what I mean? Just I have to really, really, really press into to let myself know that it's going to be okay. You just have to get through this hour, and then just blast some like upbeat, like don't worry, be happy, like whatever type of music that looks like, to get me there. And then um if I have to, I'll close my we only have tapestries that I bought as like a little door that means don't bother me if this tapestry is closed. And so sometimes I would do that. And then I did have a really good, positive, wonderful coworker that knows of my struggles. And I would grab her and be like, can we go for a walk?
nice.
and I would weep during that walk, or I would air punch it out, or whatever like I needed to do at that moment, but having her to bounce it off, because then she would check on me all throughout the day. And sometimes, because she knows not to say stuff out loud because of the way that we're both treated in the workplace,
Uh,
she would do something like something goofy. She'd wink at me, or she'd text me, or she'd point at the door like, "Do you want to go on another little walk?" So I guess finding who will support you, and doing whatever you can with them. Because like you were saying, with even though it didn't quite work out the way you had hoped with your business partner, you communicated, and that's what's key. Because I also have ran a women's recovery home for the last 4 years, and um, um, a lot of times the women either were going through something large right when I got home, or they were excited to tell me about their day, or they were in relapse mode, or different situations has happened. And if I had just gotten out of therapy, or if whatever had happened at work, I was real snippy and snappy, and it came out as rude and non-caring sometimes, and that's exactly how the opposite of how I wanted it to come back. But I wasn't advocating for myself, so they just thought I was being a bitch and I didn't care about them. So
mhm.
it wasn't until I started communicating to them, "I am so sorry, but I just need like 30 minutes. And if I go straight to my room and I don't even put my bags down, please know it's something that I'm going through. It's not because I don't care about you, but I want to take this time to go through this and process what I'm doing so that I could give you my true attention." And then that looked so much different.
Yeah.
I didn't even know how to like communicate that. So communicating with the people that are in your close circle is huge. And then I haven't been very good at doing this, but I'm trying to be better. It's just doing the things that like playing my Native American drums almost instantly, smudging almost instantly, riding my bike with music on instantly, animal therapy instantly, like doing those things even when we don't even know how we're going to like lift our heads up. We have to
Right.
push through to that, because a bath, water heals me, yet I'm nowhere trying to get by the water.
Mm.
So just really trying our hardest to get to that happy place.
Are those the kinds of things that you would do like um throughout your week too? I'm just curious about like that for that kind of shoring up, like putting
That's
other
yes, but I've been in the bump and grind, and that's also why I've been feeling a certain way. So yesterday I was so tired and lack of sleep, just did not want to do anything. But I forced myself to get up and go to this wonderful spot on the Calapooya River, and I looked for rocks, and I skipped rocks, and I just had the most 4 hours worth of the most beautiful water therapy. I talked to my son. I put leaves in the I did all the things. And so today I'm showing up pretty damn good.
nice, good
So
for you.
yeah, so
Uh,
I try to. I'm going to do better at it. I think now that I'm moving into non manager position in my home life,
mm,
I'm going to be able to do
mm,
more stuff like that reboots my soul, that energizes my soul.
yeah. Well, now one of the things that you did do, that I think is wonderful, like that exercising your agency thing, right? Was actually going and looking for other work
Yep.
that that would work better for you and that, you feel like would be more supportive. And I mean, that's just awesome that, there's so many for me when I've been depressed or feeling defeated, sometimes it's been easier to sit in that defeat. You know what I mean? And not do the things, not make the changes, right? There's the serenity prayer, right? The courage to change the things we can, and it seems like you have done that, which is pretty awesome.
For the first time ever. Like I would have never, I would have felt so, I would have just sat in that, like, they don't like me. Why would anybody else in any other company like me? I would have ran with that until I was so beat down that I couldn't have possibly, done anything. And to be honest, my sponsor, my drug and alcohol sponsor, was like, I want you to go apply for a couple of places just for practice. And she goes, you're probably not going to get hired, but just do it for practice. And so I did it, I did it thinking, okay, I'll do what she says. And then I got a bite off the very first place, and which was a huge job. No, I didn't get it.
Uh-huh.
But then I thought, you know what? That gave me even though I didn't get it, that I got chosen to even move to the next round, made me try. And then this very second place I applied for, I got hired at, and it is everything that it truly is. Like, that I'm taking over a Native American contract. So I know that I'm not going to get, biased anyway. I'm not going to
Of that.
go into too much detail other than I'm thrilled and I'm glad that I was able to do that. And I am glad to be putting that behind me.
Nice.
This type of treatment, because my whole life I thought I deserved this treatment.
Yeah.
I deserved the trauma, and I deserved the lashings, and I deserved everything. But the truth of the matter is we don't.
That's
We
right.
don't.
That's right. You deserve the love and care you're giving yourself right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that your brother came and gave you, which is
Yes. Yeah.
so so in this new job then, for example, um I imagine there will be times where you're still going to need to take care of yourself and it may not be convenient for work. What would you like that to look like? What would you like, how would you like that to go down? Like both from your side as well as from the your your employer's side, your supervisor's side. And maybe coworkers, who knows?
Well, because of the fact that we don't know when something's going to come up, a memory, just that mama's heart that just aches. We don't know. First of all, I think that I should be able to use a sick day for that. I mean, that would be ideal. I just think that we have we at this new job, there's a clinical supervisor who's just basically there to check in on you because of the type of work that we do. I would like to be able to go to my clinical supervisor and just say, I'm having a hard time. My PTSD is triggered. My bipolar's up. My son, I can't. Can I go home, and then have it not be a big to do, and it would be like, okay, you'll just have to do a couple more reports and stay a little bit tomorrow. Is that okay? Absolutely,
Nice.
absolutely. And then even a text at some point through the trauma or the mental health that I'm going through, just a text from the supervisor. Hey, just looking in on you, and then no weirdness when I get back. I don't need to talk about it now here in the workplace. Just know that I went through something, and you gave me the space and the grace, and now I'm back.
Nice. Nice. And you can be counted on to do the great work
Yes.
now, just like you were the days before, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And you don't have to oh baby girl. Look,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm still the same badass bitch I was 2 days ago.
That's right. That's right. And in fact, even more of a badass bitch, because guess what? You stood up for yourself. You
Yeah.
said, I know myself well enough to know I need a break. I'm going to take that break right now. I'm going to come back and I'm going to be even better, even better.
And here's just one thing. I
Yeah,
cry. I'm a crier.
me
I'm
too.
I'm a crier, and I'm a hardcore crier. I'm not a dainty crier. I mean, I am. It is not good. Snot bubbles, the whole nine. So if I get to a point where this is going on in the office, there is a very strong likelihood that that crying like that alone is going to trigger somebody else's mental health.
Mm-hmm.
That's all the more reason. Like if I seen someone doing all that, I would know. I would feel all sorts of way. I would feel helpless, which might trigger how I felt as a kid. I mean, a lot can happen with that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's another reason in an office environment to say, "You're out of here, kid."
Yeah. Yeah.
Because now you got two people going through it.
Yeah. Right. Right.
You got half your staff going through it because you wouldn't let the one go home.
Yeah.
Where everybody there has to have lived experience. So we're either addicts in recovery or we got mental health ourselves, or, come on now.
Right.
Together, bro.
Right. Right. Well, and the cool thing about that, I mean, in an ideal situation, right? We're not all like wearing our stuff on our sleeves, and it's not always on the surface. It's not always a struggle.
Yeah.
There are periods where it's more of a struggle more often.
Right.
And some of us, we have like long periods where it's just like shit's going good, right?
Yeah,
So like the
absolutely.
ideal situation is with we can have empathy for one another and like be all right, I got you because I have the capacity to get your back right now and I know you're going to get my back down the road too. And it occurs to me as I say that out loud that a part of what I suppose I want in my intimate relationships and my relationships with my coworkers, with my boss, um, is trust, right? Like, trust that if I say I need to take care of myself, I do. I'm not trying to get out of things.
Yeah.
If trust that I am going to take care, that I understand and value my work, right? You and I both do work that like we actually genuinely value, right? We know we're doing good stuff in the world, right? And we want to do good by that work. And hopefully our employers hired us in part because of that, right? So to trust us that that is still the case, and that we're going to get right back on it, and if something needs to happen, um, yeah. So to trust us that we'll come back and continue in that vein.
Yeah.
And then I guess the other part of it really is that like that pitching in and being creative, right? The creative's like, okay, yep, it's not super convenient. Okay, that's going to be a day late or a couple of days late. Okay, that means I just need to adjust this expectation. Okay, we can make it work,
Yeah.
right? Like I can imagine, like in my own mind, um, shuffling things around if I'm the supervisor and going, yep, this is how we're going to make it work. And in the end, you know, no one died from it, right? Like we're like uh everything's going to be okay. And if there is something like there's a funding deadline that's related to it, well, you know what? We're going to do that extra thing to help like fill in that gap right now that Megan or Nobly can't do, and she entrusts that we're going to come in and do that for somebody else down the road when they need it,
Well, and it
right?
goes it goes back to the old treating it as an illness. If you break your foot tomorrow and you're jacked up in the ER for 3 days, you're not making the deadlines.
Right. They're going to have to do something.
Somewhere is going to have to pull that out and figure that out.
That's right.
What I'm saying is it's no different. And if you, so I had a quote at the end of my piece, and it was like, to me, we're these beautiful bulbs, and we're blooming. And it's like, I just need you as my employer to be the potting soil, to let me grow. Because when I get to be that bloom in your company, you know what I mean? It's going to be, and everybody, not just your employer, but in life, it to me, it all boils down to the meeting people where they are. Be nice.
Yeah.
Be nice. Be supportive. Like, flip that switch.
Right.
What if
Yeah.
all of a sudden you didn't realize you were undiagnosed bipolar as a supervisor? What
Right.
is it that you would need from your employees to support you through that?
Right.
Flip that switch. Flip
Yeah.
it and go, okay, well, okay.
Yeah.
That's why it's team. It's team work, because
Yeah.
we're supporting. We're supposed to be supporting as a team. It doesn't matter if I love dogs and you hate dogs. That's not what it's about. It's about what we can do as a team in the workplace to make everybody okay there.
Right. That's right.
Because
Yeah.
we're, you know, that's, but all too often in my situation, it becomes personal. You don't fit into my clique, and I'm on a power trip. So if you're unwilling to be clicky, which was me, I don't do that.
Yeah. I don't either.
Now you're targeted. Now you're the one we want, because A, you're not in our clique, and B, you're over there working, making us look bad.
Uh-huh.
So we don't, you're the one.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
going to be mean girls to you.
I see.
And
I
if you're like, okay, don't make me go, I'm not the one,
yeah.
then it's the backbite, and we're going to find other ways to get you. You're not going to have a mental health day.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just really make it hard for you
Right.
to
It's
be
not
at work and to
necessary.
be successful. Yeah. Um, yeah. And I think honestly the same thing goes for any of our relationships, right? Like you mentioned um in your home, right? In our households, whatever our households look like,
Yeah.
whether it's, housemates or family members of any generation, right? Like that um that we're looking to be a team.
Yeah.
And I mean that's the way we're all going to get through this better, right?
Yes.
And I continually go back to and love that phrase that that we heal in community.
Yes.
And that I think of that in a whole bunch of different ways, and oftentimes when I say that I'm thinking about, like, that kind of emotional support we provide for each other, and that we don't feel so alone and isolated and crazy that we're going through this thing that, oh my gosh, all these other people go through too in their own way, not exactly the same, um but in this case too, I also mean, like, we get each other's backs when we can't do for ourselves. When you can't do for yourself, I'm here to, help prop you up, whatever, in whatever way is actually meaningful and workable for you. And you're the only one who can know what that is. And sometimes even you don't, but so it's like we have to be willing to also stumble through with people. It's like, well, that didn't actually really help, but I think maybe this might help.
And we've
uh
talked about that silent support a lot.
yeah.
Sometimes just our loved ones being in the room,
Yeah.
holding our hands with no words said, sometimes is all we need. That little walk.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. That sometimes that's all we need.
Yeah. And if they happen to be in a particularly rough spot too at the moment, it's like it's still possible to have acknowledgement of each other and the acknowledgement that maybe we can't be that support for each other, but we cannot make we could agree to not make it worse for each other, and to know that we love each other, whatever, variation of love that may be. It may just be a human being love, right? A respect, right, that we might have for, say, a housemate or something.
Yeah.
So yeah. Um yeah, so I guess, yeah, in the end, um we've got, wanting to be really respected, trusted, to be there for each other, to be creative, to treat these needs, yeah, at work, to treat these needs as if it's a physical ailment, because somehow we seem to know how to deal with that. Um, or
Yeah.
somebody going through cancer, like that's probably a good parallel, right? Because of the long-term nature of it, and the um maybe not the unexpected stuff, but sometimes there are unexpected, right, reactions to the medication.
Yeah.
And so and there are worse times and better times. So, if an employer needs to, get out of, if they can't seem to get over their biases around mental health, at least put your head in a mindset of working with an employee who is going through cancer treatment. And know that the idea is that we're going to be better on the other side of it, but there just may be we need some creative workarounds in the meantime when we're going through it. um any other things you want to, oh, and then I guess, and then on the other thing, last thing I wanted to add in my list of things is just all of the things that we can do to shore ourselves up, right? That we don't have to necessarily depend on somebody else getting it right all the time. That there are things that we can do for ourselves. Your day at the river like yesterday it's a perfect example of that. So, um, anyway, what else would you add to that kind of summing up?
I know that you like to do like yoga and like the I think that there's so much in that, and the exercise, especially mindful exercise like that,
Yes.
is really good. The Like I had mentioned, bike riding to me, it just it's so healing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just like when we have anniversary dates of the ones we love and stuff, we just have to let ourselves go through the process.
Yeah.
Don't put any expectations on how fast you're supposed to be better or how you're supposed to be acting or what you have to say to people or what you don't shouldn't say to people. And just I guess just be your biggest advocate.
Mm-hmm.
just
Right.
just just do you.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we have to do that, and like I've talked to you before, sometimes it looks like fetal position in the bed. Sometimes it looks like watching the most ridiculous, raunched out, cheesy comedies one can imagine. Um, so it just just as random and unpredictable as the mental health shows up, sometimes so does the cure.
Yeah. Yes.
So I guess just getting creative with your mental space and your physical body and just doing whatever that looks like for
Yeah.
you and that particular mental health episode situation that you're going through.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. And then, yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
How about for you, kind of?
Yeah, I mean, all of that, a couple of things popped up for me. Uh Definitely, the communication thing you mentioned earlier about communication. Whatever we can do, we don't have to, I think, communicate necessarily on somebody else's timeline. But if we can, like, we're talking about like making way for therapy, right? Like,
Yeah.
to the extent that you can, it is that advocating, like, know I'm going to need to carve out some space for myself, or might be difficult with this employer. I'm going to go talk with somebody else about some strategies, talk with my therapist about some strategies that I might work through with that. I'm going to have, my BFF, I'll be like, I'm going to need to book some, venting sessions with you, because I'm going to need to get this off my chest, whatever it is, right? And then, yeah, in between all of those things, just doing all of the stuff that fills you up, right? Like you mentioned earlier, being a Christian, I imagine your faith also offers you some really um uh good arms around you and some good cushion.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And so this is my heritage. Um,
Right.
a lot of things that we do is it's not just natives, but fire therapy. I mean, just getting stuck in the flames, and just there's something that it soothes my soul, the fire, that
Mhm.
just, and I've been able to, I don't know, it's just got me through some things. And so
Mhm.
that, to me too, the flames and
Yes.
all the things that come with that, you know.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and definitely the culture. And you mentioned drumming too. That yeah. So all of these kinds of things that we know that are healing and filling, and that all of those things, the more we can pour those things into our lives when we're planning to go through therapy, the more um resilient I think we're going to be in the process, and the better we're going to be able to use some of those tools to advocate for ourselves, and to get the best results possible, or to navigate it when it doesn't go so well.
Yes, through the process of surviving.
It's the process of surviving, you betcha.
Yeah.
So we're going extra long, but can you just say just a few of the, like, the benefits you've already experienced? Uh, we said if we had time at the end, if you wanted to just share like some of, like, what good is coming for you going through all of this stuff. So,
I
because we don't want to scare people off of therapy, right?
know.
Like, there's like
No.
really good reason if we
Yes.
go through this.
Well, my self-esteem, being able to forgive myself, was huge, because it was like I failed at life. I was a drug addict. I was this and that. I failed at life, but being able to understand how just the opposite of that was. This
Mm.
girl did all of this stuff, and then how having my little sisters who I would lay and take their beatings. I have them say that they are who they are because I protected them.
Mm.
And that relationship, now they never had addiction problems because I anyway, just knowing that, and then to be able to do the kind of work that I do now, to be in a spot that I could show up for other people, and to be able to look in the mirror and be happy with what I see,
Mhm.
looking back at me, and the fact that I'm moving into my own place, very own place for the first time in decades. Um, my very own, and it's beautiful, and to be able to advocate for myself and have enough confidence to look for a great job and to get that great job, and the lightness. Yes, I still have heavy days, but I mean, I was walking like Quasimodo for, and I feel like I'm starting to straighten up. I'm starting to straighten up because some of that, and it is really, they say in the program of, AA and NA, that it's really like peeling a layer of an onion. The
Yeah.
more you peel, and to me, I added to that, the sweet spot of the onion is in the center, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so we just keep peeling and peeling and peeling, and you will get to the center. And anyway, one other thing is, somebody said to me the other day, you can't scratch the surface and expect deep results.
Yeah.
So
Love that.
So with that, all that, the deep, not just scratching, but going deep, the results and the reward on the other side of that hurt and that trauma is worth it.
Awesome.
It's all a process. But I would not stop it before I was done with all of that. I am grateful that I know that this exists, that I know how to not only to soothe myself, but to recognize how it's showing up in my physical body and giving myself time. Like I can take a Dr. Teal's healing bath. I
Yes.
mean, now I know that, anyway, that just it's worth it. It's worth it. You have to find the right therapist. It's okay to shop around because it's not going to show up the same if you're holding back. And if it's not a good fit and you're holding back, a lot of people are embarrassed to say you're not the one.
Hmm.
It's okay. It's okay.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. That excellent, excellent reminder. And what a great example you are. So,
And you.
oh, I love you. This has been a really great conversation.
Yes.
We're going to continue to come back when stuff bubbles up for us that we want to talk about. Of course, we invite uh, folks to put something on the table that you'd like us to talk about too, if you like. Otherwise, yeah. I don't know when we'll be back, but we'll be back.
Yeah.
So so in the meantime, we'll keep taking care of ourselves, and two of those wonderful ways we take care of ourselves, right? Our medicines, our laughter, of course, and water. But shall we give us a little laughter to close us out?
Yes, it's totally dorky, but why can't you stupid? Why can't you trust the king of the jungle?
Why?
Because he's always a lion. Stupid.
uh, I'm a sucker for they're no longer dad
I
jokes. They're
know
silly
it's
jokes. I love
cheesy, but I love them.
them.
Love
See,
them.
I feel better already.
Oh,
I love you. Be
cheers.
well.
I love
Cheers.
you.
Mm, mm.
We'll check in soon, my friend.
Yes, indeed.